For listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Dzień dobry. This is Joanne Yanitsky, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the January 29th, 2026 issue of the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Do you believe January is virtually finished? January 2026. And now we're on to February. The good news is that makes us another month closer to spring. I can't believe how cold it's been, really. Just staying inside, trying to keep warm, and that's the safest way to do it. Stay inside, keep warm, putter around. Grab paper, pencil, recorder, whatever you need. I did notice, I just skimmed a couple pages, but I did notice some recipes for bread. And of course, there's always the email, website, phone number, whatever, that you might want to keep track of. Okay, front page. Lovely full color photograph. Little kids in front, big kids in the back. And the caption reads, honoring grandparents. Students at the Monsignor Adamski Polish Saturday School put on a program for their grandparents Saturday, January 24th at the school on St. Stanislaus Church campus in Buffalo, New York. Poland celebrates back-to-back days to honor grandmothers and grandfathers. Grandmother's Day, Jane Babcie, is January 21st, and Grandfather's Day, Jane Jadka, is January 22nd. Polish News Bites. Vision for a Polish megacity takes shape. Urban planners and academics in southern Poland have renewed debate over a proposal to merge the municipalities of the Górnośląsko-Zagłębiowska metropolia into a single megacity. This new urban entity could encompass more than 2.1 million residents across some 41 cities and municipalities, potentially becoming Poland's largest city by population and area, surpassing Warsaw in terms of population. While the proposal would maintain existing local governments and leaders, proponents argue that deeper integration could elevate the region's economic and political influence nationally. Critics, however, caution that such a transformation would require robust governance frameworks to align diverse local interests. Public consultations and feasibility studies are expected to follow as stakeholders weigh the benefits against the complexities of regional consolidation. Polish naval modernization to counter Russian threats. Poland is undertaking its most extensive overhaul of naval forces since the Cold War, significantly expanding its Baltic Sea military capabilities amid rising security concerns over Russia's actions. The government has launched construction of 3 modern frigates at the Gdynia shipyard and signed agreements to acquire 3 submarines from Sweden, along with new minesweepers and a submarine rescue vessel. These programs aim to address decades of underinvestment that left the Polish Navy reliant on aging Soviet-era and U.S.-donated vessels. Warsaw's defense spending, among the highest in NATO relative to GDP, has been driven by hybrid threats, including suspected Russian sabotage of undersea cables and repeated airspace violations. Deputy Defense Minister Pavel Beda emphasized that a stronger maritime presence is essential to protect Baltic infrastructure and deter any potential aggression. And wrapping up Polish news bites, Poland thwarts cyber attack with Dino Wiper malware. Polish authorities revealed that a failed cyber attack late in 2025 targeted critical energy infrastructure using previously unknown Dino Wiper malware. Government officials and cybersecurity researchers attribute the operation to the Russia-linked Sandworm hacking group. The attackers attempted to disrupt 2 combined heat and power plants and systems managing renewable energy generation, but there is no evidence they succeeded in causing outages. Poland's Command of Cyberspace Forces detected and mitigated the intrusion, with the energy minister calling it one of the most significant attacks on the country's power system in recent years. Rescheduled Polish dinner is February 1st. The Polish dinner, Opłatek and Kolenda, at St. Stanislaus Church in Buffalo has been rescheduled for Sunday, February 1st. The event begins with Mass at noon, followed by dinner in the social center across the street. The celebration will include the sharing of Opłatek and singing of Kolenda as the Polish 40 Days of Christmas draw to a close. Reservations are required by calling or texting Andy Gołębiowski. Phone number 716-510-7562. Again, 716-510-7562. Or by email, andy@polishprogram.com. andy@polishprogram.com. Admission is $35 payable at the door. Organizer of the event is the Polish American radio program. Episodes of the program can be heard anytime online at polishprogram.com. The program is also broadcast live on the radio at WEBR AM 1440, FM 105.3, and online at webrradio.com. Program host is Andy Gołębiowski. St. Stanislaus Church is located on Peckham Street at Fillmore in Buffalo, New York. 2 heroines highlighted at International Holocaust Remembrance Event. There is a photograph. The speaker has a slideshow. The photo is by Lauren Bloomberg, and the caption reads, Dr. Rose Birkin speaks about the 2 heroines of the evening's presentation, Rose Katz, Greg's mother, and Alexandra Jezwiecka, Greg's rescuer. Greg and Raya Chernevsky look on. The poignant story of the life of Holocaust survivor Greg Chernevsky, a story of loss, survival, resilience, and legacy in 1940s Lithuania, USSR, was told by his daughter, Dr. Rose Birkin, with assistance from Chernevsky sitting with his wife Raya at the Lippmann Lounge of the Jewish Community Center on January 21st, 2026. After many years of speaking to audiences in Western New York himself, Chernevsky has passed the baton to his daughter, Dr. Rose Birkin, clinical assistant professor of anesthesiology in the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences, founder and CMO of Northeast Ambulatory Anesthesia, and a past president of New York State Society of Anesthesiologists, who confidently told Szersznewski's story, focusing on the two heroes of the story, Greg's mother, Rose Katz, and the women who took him in, Aleksandra Jezwiecka, a devout Polish Catholic who had adopted a number of orphan children. Born in April of 1941, Greg was under 2 months old when his parents faced the reality of the ultimate German plan for the two Jewish ghettos that existed in Vilnius. Through the slave laborers who were sent outside the ghetto on work details, information came of a woman who had a number of orphan children under her care. Rose Katz, Greg's mother, was one of those slave laborers who were sent out to clean the offices of SS officers. Facing the reality of life in the ghetto and its likely liquidation, Rose made the unthinkable choice to place the infant in hiding in her work bucket, dropping the bucket in a predetermined site where a similar bucket of cleaning supplies lay ready for her. Thus, Greg's life was now in the hands of Aleksandra Jezwiecka, who obtained a birth certificate under his new Christian name, one of Pani Aleksandra's favorite saints, Stanislaus Kostka, and raised him along with the other children under her care. Szersznewski remembers the 4 years in her care as a happy time. She was his matenka, or mommy, who cared for him and the other children, took them to church, and saw to it that he would sometimes be set in a stroller to walk by the ghetto in hopes that his parents would see him. Greg's parents, along with about 150 ghetto residents, carefully planned an escape from the ghetto. Sadly, one of the group betrayed them. Of the 150 escapees, only 7 survived the ambush. Among the survivors was Greg's father, Ber Szersznewski, who then joined the partisans in their efforts to disrupt the Nazi war machine. Rose Katz perished. After the war, he came to reclaim his son. Pani Aleksandra said no, as she did not know him. He finally was able to prove that he was Greg's father, but understood the pain which this separation caused her, having experienced the same trauma himself. A somewhat mischievous child, when Greg was dropped off at school, he hid until his father left, and then proceeded to go visit Pani Aleksandra. A little while later, when his father inquired as to his progress in school, he found out that Greg hadn't been in school. The regular visits stopped, although Greg was allowed to continue to visit Pani Aleksandra. Life after the war was difficult. Greg eventually became an electrician, and at 19 found himself in the Army, where the structured life was appealing to him, giving him a sense of purpose and a family structure. He received a scholarship to attend college after his discharge and eventually received a master's in electrical engineering. Meanwhile, he met the love of his life, Raya, to whom he has been married for 65 years. Their daughter, Rose, named after her courageous grandmother, was born in the USSR. The lack of freedom of speech, religion, and expression under communism was difficult. In school, Rose had to lie about how good life was in the USSR. Anti-Semitism, especially in obtaining placement in school and jobs, was common. Everyone had an ID card, so there was no denying your identity. Rose pushed her parents to leave, and in 1980, the family, including Raya's mother, obtained permission and came to the United States. Soon after, it became almost impossible to leave the USSR. After spending one exciting day in New York City, the family came to Buffalo and were assisted by the Jewish Federation. They learned English, successfully found work, and Rose eventually went to the University of Buffalo, graduating from its medical school. She proudly displayed photos of her husband, Robert Birkin, and 3 now grown boys, Ben, Ryan, and Jason, as the family legacy blooms. It was the mother of another Jewish child that Aleksandra Jezwiecka cared for, Gittele Gittelman, who provided testimony to the Yad Vashem Memorial Museum for Jezwiecka to be named righteous among the nations in 1992, an honor bestowed bestowed on Gentiles who, out of altruism, risked their lives in order to save Jews from being exterminated by Nazi Germany during the Holocaust. Szyrzniewski noted that in the USSR, they had no knowledge that such an award existed. Getele's family went to Israel even before it was established as a nation. When asked if he had any contact with Getele, he did not. Mr. Szyrzniewski fielded other questions, including one about when he found out he was Jewish. Greg noted that he was raised speaking Polish and as a Catholic. He was about 7 years of age when he found out he was Jewish. His main language was Polish, which he still speaks well. He continued the story of his relationship with Pani Alexandra, humorously describing his regular visits on Christmas Eve for Vigilia, where 12 dishes were required. Given the poverty in which she lived, there were multiple and varied potato and herring dishes prepared to achieve the 12. Jezwiecka returned to Poland in 1957. Raya eventually took over the duty of writing to her and sending cards. They were able to visit her in 1967 in Poznan, a year before her death, where she lived in a Catholic care home, which Greg described as a retired nurse's dorm, and saw all the cards and letters they had sent on display on a shelf in the room. Jezwiecka gave Greg his birth certificate, which she had kept all those years. In a book written by Greg's uncle, Daniel Katz, Concert Played for Our Lives, he described the visit when Jezwiecka at first did not recognize her Stashik. "Mommy, it's me, Stashik." If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, what happened, I wouldn't have believed it. The old woman jumped up as if she was 15 years old, hugged him on her tiptoes, and cried and cried. She was talking like she was talking with a small child. "Stashik, my dearest." Afterwards, she glanced at Christ hanging on the wall, fell on her knees, and talked with him wordlessly. I looked at Stashik. That was another Stashik, not the one I had known. This Stashik was Alexandra Jezwiecka's son, and she was his mommy. As part of the presentation, a photo of the Yad Vashem Wall of the Righteous, where Jezwiecka's name is listed, was shown. In other places, including the book referenced above, the name is spelled Jezwiecka. The name can also be found at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. Greg has visited both sites. Pani Alexandra also became famous near the war's end when she dragged a wounded Soviet officer into her apartment and brought him back to health. She was featured in a newspaper article and received a small pension from the Soviet government. The program concluded with a thanks to the Szyrzniewski family and a reminder that one person can make a difference, along with a call to follow in Pani Alexandra's footsteps to be a light to those around us. The program was sponsored by the Holocaust Education Resource Organization of the Buffalo Jewish Federation and the permanent chair of Polish culture at Canisius University in honor of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Let's take our first break. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. There is an ad here, Fat Thursday, Punchki Day, February 12th from 5 to 10 p.m. at St. Teresa's Parish Center, 35 Mineral Springs Road, that's in South Buffalo, New York. There is free admission, free Polish food, a full bar, a basket raffle, and live party polka music by the Buffalo Touch. I'll bet that's going to be a fun event. I have to go back because I skipped some to follow the longish story of the Szyrzniewskas. Let's do David Franchik and the Eagle's Eye. Polish bakeries almost non-existent. They used to say that there were so many taverns on Buffalo's Polish east side that there was one on every corner and two in between. Am-Pol Eagle columnist Tom Tadapachki has written about some of these long-lost establishments, but the same can be said about the gone but not forgotten Polish bakeries which once dotted Polonia. A story in the Am-Pol Eagle reported that at the turn of the last century, at least 18 bakeries operated in Broadway Fillmore alone. Am-Pol Eagle columnist Greg Vitul wrote about one of the most popular bakeries run by the Chmielewski family 100 years ago. My great-aunt Zofia Zakrzewski ran a bakery on Broadway during that same era. But the Polish baking tradition in retail has almost entirely vanished, not only on the east side, but everywhere. Growing up in Broadway Fillmore in Kaisertown, I remember how the Franchik family depended on these family-run businesses to fill our table with tempting baked goods like rye bread with seeds, black bread or pumpernickel, almond rings, alligator rolls, cream or jelly-filled donuts, and so much more. My mother, Alina Smolarek Franchik, worked full-time, so she didn't have time to bake all of the time. But when time afforded, she made great apple pies and plátzek, but not bread. For that, we depended on the Polish bakeries with names like Gold Ray, Helox, White Eagle, Walden Quality Bakery, which was profiled some years ago by Am-Pol Eagle columnist Christine Apt. Hizzy's, D&L, Mazurek's, Tombach's at the Broadway Market, and Burczynski's, to name a few. There was Pietzak's Bakery in Black Rock, which recently closed. Florian Burczynski bakeries were located throughout western New York before sadly permanently closing in 1983. After World War II, returning GI Chester Matusak partnered with a friend to start Vinchet Bakery, which remains open today as a gluten-free bakery on Kensington Avenue in Amherst. I don't know if you can still find a Polish-style sour rye bread at the store. There were many more Polish family bakeries, the names of which I can't remember. On early cold Saturday mornings, my grandfather, Zygmunt Cy Smolarek, would walk with me from Rother Avenue to Al Cohen's Bakery on Broadway to go to a side door on Sobieski Street, and we'd walk directly into the Cohen's production bakehouse where the bread was baked. The original building is still there. Inside the bakery, on seemingly endless metal racks, dozens and dozens of hot, out-of-the-oven, just-baked rye bread was available to be purchased right where it was baked. You didn't have to go to the Cohen store in front, which wasn't even open yet, but could buy it in the back where it was made. The smell of the rye bread was positively heavenly. Cy brought the bread home still hot, and when it cooled down, you could have a slice of his matchless bread with farmer's butter or tub butter, usually bought at the Broadway Market. My grandfather sometimes spread lard on his bread, an acquired taste, I guess. The Cohen family were Polish-Jewish bakers who emigrated to Buffalo in the 19th century. According to an article in Buffalo Rising, they opened a bakery on Strauss Street in 1894 and later opened a larger facility at Broadway and Sobieski Streets. That plant stayed in operation until very recently, when the business was rebranded and its operations moved to the former Will Poultry Factory on William Street near the main post office. When owner Mark Domenico bought the Cohen's Bakery in the mid-1990s, he met with me in my capacity as Fillmore District Council member. For many years, Domenico and his partner ran the bakery as it had been for generations, making all the traditional baked goods people grew up with. The retail store on Broadway closed quite a few years ago, but the Cohen products were supplied to supermarkets, and on the front of the Broadway building, you can still see the painted mural of the Cohen family and its ties to Poland. Today, Al Cohen's owners, which include the local Joya company, emphasizes making pizza dough, although they continue to produce the Cohen recipe traditional rye breads, which can be found at Tops, Wegmans, and other supermarkets. Since I generally can't find rye bread at a neighborhood bakery anymore since Mazurek's on South Park closed its door last year, I will often buy a Cohen's rye in a supermarket. And although it's not the same experience as buying it hot and fresh from the oven, the rye is still pretty good, although some bloggers disagree. The Broadway market on Saturdays will sell an Eileen's Bakery rye bread, which also is good. Eileen's, which has recently been sold, was originally founded by a German immigrant family. When I'm in West Seneca, which isn't that often, I'll stop in Eileen's to get a rye bread. And during the Easter season, I will try to get some of their excellent Fastnacht pastry. Today, interest in traditional bakery seems to have waned, at least the Polish bakeries. A few artisan bakeries have popped up here and there, including one opened by a young Russian emigre, Anastasia Nikolaeva, who named her bakery Anastasia's Artisan Breads in North Tonawanda. I have not been there, but the bakery's online site shows some very traditional-looking East European breads and pastries, including a Borodinsky rye, which looks very good, and many other items. 5 Points Bakery, not a Polish bakery, also makes a very good rye bread, as does the Bread Hive. There used to be many wonderful bakeries in the Broadway market, chief among them E.M. Kruszczyki, run by Tadeusz and Hania Robieniak for many years. As Fillmore District Council member, I got to know hardworking business people like the Robieniaks and many others. Daughter Anya Dushan ran the excellent Stolat Restaurant Cafe in the Eastern Hills Mall for a number of years, but unfortunately the closing of the mall compelled a change in the business model. The Kruszczyki Bakery and Cafe now operate out of the Delavan Hotel, owned by Salvatore Prime in Depew. Mazurek's Bakery, most recently taken over by OLV Human Services, only recently closed its store on South Park. I have not checked out their retail store relocated to Ridge Road, but the business is closed on weekdays. The day I used to visit the day I used to visit the always busy South Park Bakery with its unique 1920s brick oven. I don't know if the new store still bakes rye bread. So, the overall consensus is that the great Polish-American bakeries we all knew and loved are mostly a thing of the past. Why did they close? Could people's tastes have changed that much? Hard to say. All I can say is szkoda. Well, this is your reader, and I can certainly tell you about the Polish bakeries that no longer exist except in fond memories that were in Lackawanna. Sparks Bakery. Elrod's wasn't a Polish bakery, but it was a wonderful bakery in the L.B. Smith Plaza, now the Abbott Road Plaza. Wróblewski's Bakery, Maślanka's. I could go on and on and on. They were all wonderful. They were all known for, they all had their little specialties. And we lived closest to Sparks Bakery, and Busha Wojtan would have us walk around the block, literally about 5 or 6 houses, and go get her rogaliki and maybe a hard roll or something, and bring it back so she could have it with her tub butter and cafe au lait. Didn't know how trendy Busha Wojtan was back in the day, and I always thought it weird that she boiled milk for her coffee, but she did, and made her own cafe au lait to go with rogaliki and hard rolls. Moving along, let's go to Polonia's calendar. Sunday, February 1st, Opłatek and Kolenda. We've talked about this. This is the new date because of the weather has been so bad. It was rescheduled for Sunday, February 1st. Polish Christmas gathering sponsored by the Polish American radio program. To reserve a spot, call 716-510-7562. That's 716-510-7562. Andy Gołębiowski will save a space for you. Also on Sunday, February 1st, Blessing and Procession with Thunder Candles, the presentation of Jesus in the Temple. It's at St. Casimir Church on Cable Street in Buffalo, New York, at the 10 a.m. Mass. Thursday, February 12th, Research Night, Breaking Through Our Members' Brick Walls, hosted by the Polish Genealogical Society of New York State members. It's at the Erie One Bosse's, 355 Harlem Road in West Seneca, New York, from 7 to 9 p.m. That address is right across from the SPCA. Can't miss it. Thursday, February 12th, Fat Thursday, Punchki Day at St. Teresa's Parish Center, 35 Mineral Springs Road in Buffalo from 5 to 10 p.m. Free admission, polka music by Buffalo Touch, Polish food, and more. Sponsored by the General Pulaski Association. Saturday, February 21st, Punchki and Polish pottery with instructor Michelle McLeod at St. Stanislaus Marian Hall. That's noon to 3 p.m. You are provided with paints, stencils, choice of bisque piece, and punchki. The cost is $50 and registration is required. There's a phone number, 716-854-5510. 716-854-5510. Also on Saturday, March 7th, another Polish pottery workshop. This one is Our Lady Help of Christians Lower Hall, 4125 Union Road at Genesee Street from noon to 3 p.m. $50 includes one item, plus paint, brushes, designs, patterns, and instructions from Michelle McLeod and Barbara Wawrowski, plus light refreshments. Call Kathy to register. Phone number 716-893-7885. 716-893-7885. On Thursday, March 12th, Polish census records, then and now, by Tadeusz Pilat. Erie One Bosse's, 355 Harlem Road, West Seneca, from 7 to 9 p.m. It doesn't say, but I'm pretty sure that's the Western New York Polish Genealogical Society. We're already going into March. Sunday, March 15th, corned beef and cabbage dinner and pot of gold raffle. Dinner includes corned beef, cabbage, potatoes, carrots, rye bread, dessert, and beverage. $18 per person. Children under 12, $9. 11:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. or until it's sold out, whichever comes first. It's at St. Stan's, corner of Fillmore and Peckham. You can eat in or take out, and you can get tickets from ushers or in the rectory office. That's going to wrap up this week's Polonia's calendar. Let's take a break. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Let's see here. I'm going to, there's only one entry in this week's History of Buffalo's Polonia. And this happened, normally this lists events that occurred during a certain week. And this week that's featured is January 29th to February 4th. And the only thing that we know that happened was on February 2nd, 1896. Saints Peter and Paul Church in Depew is established to serve Polish immigrants who had sought employment with the New York Central and the West Shore Railroads. So, even in 1896, Depew existed. Go figure. Or maybe Depew didn't exist, but that's what we know it as now. Okay, recipes. These recipes are from Polish Heritage Cookery by Robert the Late and Maria Strebel. Bread recipes to warm your table. Now, we were talking about good rye bread, and I do buy the Cohen's Bakery with seeds. I think it's a decent rye bread. I wish it was thicker slices, but that's just me. It toasts up really good. And grilled cheese on rye, yum. And a slice of rye bread with some butter to go with a piece of fish and some coleslaw, the best. I am getting away from the topic here. There's a recipe for easy rye bread. So let's see what this is about. If you have never baked rye bread before, this is a comparatively simple recipe which produces results similar to the whole grain peasant breads of yesteryear. By being high in fiber, it can also be considered a kind of health bread. All right, here we go. In a bowl, crush 1 cake of yeast with 1 teaspoon of sugar. Heat 3/4 cup milk and 3/4 cup water together until lukewarm. Add to yeast mixture and mix well. Add 2/3 cup all-purpose flour. Mix again, cover with a cloth, and let stand in a warm place for 15 or 20 minutes. Into a clean bowl, sift 1 cup all-purpose flour, 2 cups rye flour, add 2 cups wheat bran, 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of oil, and then you add the sponge that has been rising. And work the mixture well by hand for about 10 to 15 minutes. Cover with a cloth and set aside in a warm place to rise for at least an hour to an hour and a half. Transfer the dough to narrow, greased, bran-sprinkled loaf pans in which dough fills 1/3 to half of the pan. Cover with a cloth and let rise in a warm place until nearly doubled, about 2 hours. Brush with lightly beaten egg white and bake in a preheated 375-degree oven about 40 minutes. Check for doneness with a wooden skewer. Now, that rye bread doesn't have any caraway seeds, so I'm not sure. I guess if I was going to make it, I would have to put caraway seeds in because rye bread has to have the seeds. I know for health issues, not everybody can eat them, but they make such a difference to the flavor of a good rye bread. That's me. Okay, now here's a recipe for Old Slavic unleavened bread. This is a primitive bread that was known to the ancient Slavic forerunners of today's Poles. It harkens back to a time when yeast breads were unknown. And, as the Polish name implies, płomyczek means flame, was once baked on stones heated by a campfire. If it reminds you of Middle Eastern pita bread, that only goes to show that the breads of ancient tribes were often quite similar. This is a slightly modernized oven-baked version of this ancient recipe. Sift 2 cups all-purpose flour onto a board. Make a crater in the center. Deposit 2 eggs in the crater and sprinkle with a 1/2 teaspoon salt. Work ingredients into a dough, gradually adding about a half a cup of milk. Knead well until the dough is smooth and elastic, sprinkling the board and dough with a little flour as you go. Divide into 6 parts and roll out each into a 1/4 inch thick circle. Place on an ungreased baking sheet and bake in a preheated 400-degree oven about 10 minutes. Flip over and bake another 5 to 10 minutes on the other side. Podpomychki are best served hot straight from the oven with a little butter. You can also split them and slip a slice of ham, cheese, or something else inside for an interesting hot sandwich. It is interesting how ancient recipes continue to be used. Recipes like pita bread and naan. Naan is a Indian bread, and I'm trying to think of others, and they're all out there. They all have different names, and they're still made today. They're very simple, unleavened breads. Let's see what we have here. Here is our friend Tom Tadapachki. There is a photograph of a burly football player, Marv Matushak, at South Bend, Washington High School. Matushak helped the Bills to early success. When he came to the AFL Buffalo Bills, Marv Matushak appeared to be at the twilight of a stellar football career. However, his arrival in Buffalo not only brought about a career renaissance, but it also helped reverse the team's fortunes. Marvin Henry Matushak was born on September 12, 1931, in South Bend, Indiana, to Harry R. and Kazmira Zakrzewski Matushak. Marv played football at Washington High School, only making varsity as a senior. He apparently didn't attract much interest from Notre Dame, which was just 15 minutes from his home. However, a former Fighting Irish standout and South Bend native, Bernie Vituchki, recognized his talent. Vituchki was an assistant coach at Tulsa at the time, and he signed Matushak to play for the Golden Hurricanes. Marv blossomed into one of the top players in the Missouri Valley Conference as a guard and linebacker. In 1951, the 20-year-old junior was named to the All-America team. Tulsa head coach J.O. Buddy Brothers praised the selection, saying that Matushak, quote, trains religiously, works hard, and has a tremendous desire to win, end quote. Marv repeated as All-American in 1952 and was named team MVP as well. In the 1953 NFL Draft, the 6'3", 230-pound linebacker was selected in the 3rd round by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1953. As a rookie, he made the Pro Bowl, but was drafted into the Army in 1954. He returned to Pittsburgh after his service and played well, despite a shoulder injury. In 1957, fans were shocked when the Steelers, desperate for a quarterback, sent him to San Francisco in a deal for quarterback Earl Morrall. At the time, that deal was widely proclaimed, quote, the best trade in 49er history. Marv had a great season for the 49ers, mostly playing middle linebacker and serving as defensive leader and signal caller. He earned first-team All-Pro honors from the Associated Press, the Sporting News, and UPI, pushing greats like Walt Micah Michaels and Chuck Bednarik to the second team. His aggressiveness and hard-hitting style made him so popular that he had his own fan club, something that was unusual for that era. He had such a reputation for toughness that San Francisco News sports editor Bud Spencer quipped that Marv, quote, uses steel fillings for dental floss. End quote. The following year, after suffering knee and shoulder injuries, the All-Pro was cut by the 49ers in a surprise move. Marv was picked up by the Green Bay Packers in 1958, but then traded to the Baltimore Colts in 1959. That year, he was part of the Colts' NFL championship team. He wasn't a starter, but saw a lot of action, mostly backing up middle linebacker Dick Szymanski. In 1962, Matuszak was released by Baltimore, and he planned to retire. Instead of hanging up his cleats, Matuszak decided to sign with the Buffalo Bills of the fledgling American Football League. The Bills were looking for an experienced veteran who could play all the linebacking positions, and Marv fit the bill. Wearing number 55, he became a starter and had a great year, intercepting 6 passes and earning a spot on the AFL All-Star team. The Bills were 7-6-1, the team's first winning record, and made a huge improvement on defense. While in Buffalo, Marv married a local native, Noreen Andrade. She was the banquet manager at the Camelot Motor Inn in Hamburg, where the Bills practiced at that time. They tied the knot at Our Lady of the Sacred Heart in Hamburg, and fellow Bills linebacker John Tracy served as best man. Marv and his wife had 3 children, Robert, Linda, and Dolores. However, Marv is often mistakenly referred to as the father of former NFL defensive lineman John Matuszak. John, called the Twos, was a 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Oakland Raiders. While John's father was also named Marv, it was Marvin F. Matuszak, not Marvin H. Matuszak. In 1964, the Buffalo News did a feature about the couple. In it, Noreen explained that her husband was teaching her how to make pierogi based on his mother's recipe. Quote, "Mom's one of those old-time cooks who doesn't worry about measurements," said Noreen. "She told me, take 3 cups of flour, maybe 4. However, Marv pointed out that the pierogi came out pretty good." In 1963, Buffalo made it to the divisional playoffs, but lost to Boston. By then, John Tracy, Harry Jacobs, and Mike Stratton emerged as a young trio of talented linebackers for the Bills, a unit that would help the team to a pair of AFL titles. That made the veteran Matuszak expendable, and in the offseason he was traded to Denver with safety Billy Atkins for center Walt Kudzik. Marv played with the Broncos in 1964 and then announced his retirement. He became a coach and scout for the Broncos. Matuszak went on to coach for 16 seasons in the AFL, NFL, and CFL, with teams like the New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons, and Washington Redskins, retiring in 1978. He also worked as a building contractor and developer. Marv Matuszak died at 72 in 2004. He had a great football career, earning All-America honors in college and being named All-Pro and All-AFL during his 12-year pro football career. He also played for an NFL championship team. After retiring, he was an assistant coach in the pros for 16 seasons. For the Buffalo Bills, he is remembered as a rugged, smart defensive player who helped the team become a successful franchise in its early years. Great story, Tom Tatapaczki. Another great sports story. Okay, last break. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We have people in the news celebrating generosity. I'm looking. It doesn't say who wrote this. It does say, reprinted with permission from Fall 2025 Felician. www.felician.org. The mission of the Felician Sisters of North America thrives not only through their tireless service, but also through the generosity of those who share their vision. Across the country, donors give of their time, talent, and treasures to support the sisters' ministries and mission. The following stories highlight just a few of the individuals whose faith and dedication are making a tangible difference in the lives of others. Mary Lou Vidalbeck. We've heard that name before. When Mary Lou Vidalbeck was 11 years old, she gazed into the eyes of a saint. In 1969, as a seventh grader at Assumption School in Buffalo, she was chosen by the Felician Sisters to greet visiting Archbishop Karol Józef Wojtyła of Kraków with roses and a short speech. 9 years later, he became Pope John Paul II and was then canonized in 2014. This early experience, rooted in the Felicians' dedication to faith and education, began a lifelong bond. Over the years, her family grew close to several sisters in the neighborhood. Later, while working at M&T Bank as custodian of the Felicians' investment account, she became a steady partner to the congregation and a trusted friend to Sister Mary Augustynia Sliwinski, their treasurer. I'm caught off guard here because Sister Mary Augustynia was my 8th grade teacher, and I loved her dearly. I continue. Her involvement deepened through service. She assisted with Villa Maria College's fundraising events and joined the Felician Associates program, traveling to the Felician Center in Kingstree, South Carolina for hands-on projects. Quote, "Sometimes we had to work pretty hard, but we enjoyed it," she said. The sisters have done a remarkable job educating children, caring for the poor, and even engaging the wealthier population in Kingstree to see and respond to those needs. End quote. Vidalbeck's trust in the sisters has naturally evolved into consistent financial support. She is confident her contributions are well used, whether locally or abroad. Quote, "You can trust that the money is well spent. I've met some of the sisters in Poland, so I know it's being used properly." End quote. For Vidalbeck, giving is a continuation of her work at the bank, only now she provides the capital herself, knowing her donations are a force for good. Judith Levin. It's been nearly 50 years since Judith, maybe it's Levan, Levan, graduated from Villa Maria Academy, the all-girls high school in Buffalo, New York, yet the spirit of the school and the Felician sisters who taught there remains alive in her heart. Quote, "I felt comfortable there. I felt welcomed," Levan said. "It provided the basis of what I still believe. The things I do now were instilled in me back then." End quote. That foundation shaped her career as a meteorologist and inspired her ongoing support of the Felician Seeds of Hope ministry, which empowers young women through personal and spiritual development. Levan is active in Villa Maria's Alumni Association, which continues to support the sisters financially and through small acts of kindness, like assembling Christmas gift bags. She still gathers regularly with classmates, a testament to the lasting bonds formed under the sisters' care. She credits the supportive all-girls environment and the Felicians' encouragement with giving her confidence, crucial when she became the only woman in her college meteorology program. Quote, "Nobody ever said, 'You can't do that,' because women don't," she said. "It was always, 'You can do anything you want.' That gave me confidence to do it." End quote. For Levan, donating to Seeds of Hope is a way of extending that same gift to today's young women. "Those high school years are so important," she said. Quote, "If you instill values and confidence at that age, they'll carry them throughout their whole life." End quote. Now retired in Buffalo, Levan treasures reunions with alumni and former teachers. "It's a testament to what the sisters did then and what they're still doing," she said. "That's what keeps me going back, to see everyone gather and share those good memories." End quote. These stories are a testament to the profound and lasting influence of the Felician sisters. Through the support of donors like Mary Lou Vidalbeck and Judith Levan, the sisters are enabled to continue transforming their ministries, educating the next generation, serving the marginalized, inspiring faith, and empowering communities. Each gift, each act of generosity is a step forward in building a future grounded in faith, hope, and compassion. For more information or to make a gift, visit Felician.org. I'm scrolling through. We got another minute or two, and I can see what we've got. Oh, we can fit in polkas on tap. Ha! Okay. This one is a repeat, but it never hurts. Thursday, February 12th, Fat Thursday at St. Teresa's Parish Center, 35 Mineral Springs. This listed at West Seneca, but I assure you it's in South Buffalo. The St. Teresa's Church is right on Seneca Street, and the parish center is at 35 Mineral Springs. Runs from 5 to 10 p.m., free admission, and the Buffalo Touch will have your toes tapping. On Sunday, February 15th, Mardi Gras Ski, Potts Banquet Hall, 41 South Rossler Avenue, Cheektowaga, New York, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. $12 for advanced tickets, $15 at the door. You can get the tickets at Potts, or this is a web address, thebigeasyinbuffalo.org. No spaces, thebigeasyinbuffalo.org. That's featuring Buffalo Touch and Leron Zydeco, and special guest, Kid Kyle and Captain Tom. On Sunday, February 22nd, Polka Buzz. Polka Buzz will be, I think it's taped, at the Polish Nook, 2242 Cutterback Avenue in Niagara Falls at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It'll cost you $10 to get in. New Direction is playing, and if it's taped, you can then watch it on television later and watch yourself doing the polka. On Sunday, March 15th, St. Joseph's Day Polka Dance. Oh, Potts Banquet Hall, 41 South Rossler Avenue in Cheektowaga, New York, from 3 to 7 p.m. $10 will get you in the door. New Direction will have you dancing the polka or something Irish and something Italian. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the January 29th, 2026 issue of the Am-Pol Eagle. We read from the Am-Pol Eagle every Saturday at 3 p.m. Your reader has been Joanne Yanitsky. Thank you for listening. Do widzenia.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Grand Island Niagara County Tribune Sentinel. At 5 o'clock, we have the Lockport Union Sun and Journal. And at 6 o'clock, we got the Wall Street Journal Off Duty. Stay tuned for these readings and more. If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,